right, we're on. Welcome everyone to the Soldier Stories podcast. I am the host, Mark Ross, and welcome again. And with me tonight is retired Air Force. Uh, ser- uh, what's that? What's the rank?
In
Master
your
Sergeant.
role, it would be
Master
Sergeant
Sergeant.
Major. In your
Right.
role, it would be Sergeant Major. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I have
Command
to
Chief.
I
Yeah.
have to refer to you as a Master Sergeant.
That's all right. You call me. You can call me Sergeant Major. You can call me ugly. I don't care.
No, you're not ugly, brother. David Nortel. David Nortel, retired Master Sergeant from the Air Force, mind you. Welcome to the show, sir. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Mark.
All right.
You can tell everybody we did a show before the show. It was awesome.
Yeah, we did. We had a good long discussion before we even got this party started. So, but before we get started, talking about the business that you have going on, David,
Sure.
uh, I just wanna get set the platform. Okay, uh, tell me about where you're from and how life was for
Yeah.
you growing up. So,
Yeah.
and talk about what made you decide to go into the Air Force.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. I love talking to soldiers and Marines, and the Air Force
I
gets
got
the
I
chair
rock the
force
shirt.
rap, and but I'm gonna walk you down a little different path because
Okay.
we Air Force people get a chance to do some awesome things. So hey,
Sometimes.
so I grew up in Northern California
Northern
in a
California.
town less than 5,000 people that had one stoplight that was in the wrong place. And about 10 miles outside of that town was the dairy farm that I grew up on.
Hmm.
And so I was around agriculture, I was around animals, and I was around a lot of hard work. And I tell people that everything you need to learn about in life, you can learn about on a farm. There's life and death and decisions and triumph and failure and Mother Nature and good harvest and bad harvest and finances and joy and morning sunrises and thunderstorms, and it's all there. It's all in your face.
Hmm.
And so foundationally, I think it was pretty good. Narrow culturally, but foundationally with what life hands you on a day-to-day basis, the things that make life hard, I think it's all there. So grew up, in a Portuguese community with a lot of Mexicans, a lot of migrants, and
Hmm.
so work side by side in the field with a lot of migrants. We're not going to talk about immigration today, but I got a whole different spin on it.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good.
Had my grandmother's brother um, was a combat engineer that fought through North Africa, Sicily, and up to the boot of Italy with Patton in World War II. And in fact, I have his letters that he wrote to my grandmother, and he's describing the building of Fort Leonard Wood, which is amazing.
Hmm.
So, so very patriotic upbringing, and I always wanted to go in the Navy. Now hold that thought. So I always wanted to go in the Navy. I used to get up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and watch John Wayne storm the beaches of Iwo Jima, and I loved the destroyers prepping the beach, all that stuff. It's just totally
Oh.
fascinating.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And I go to high school, and all the recruiters are there, and we're doing our ASVAB test, and I
Hmm.
go to talk to the Navy recruiter, and Mark, he wasn't having such a good day. I'll just leave it at that. And I'm looking at him like, are you kidding? I mean, my whole lifelong dream is to be like you, and you're acting like this. It was weird. But standing next to him was Master Sergeant John Dees, Air Force recruiter, put his arm on my shoulder. He says, I think I have an opportunity for you. And I said, well, I wanted to go in the Navy. I want to be a plumber. I had a cousin who was a plumber. He was making a good living, and I figured it's something I knew something about.
Sure. Sure.
He said, we'll see how things go. So, to accelerate the story, I go in the Air Force, and they make me a medic, straight leg medic. And I had no idea that I had any aptitude for medicine, and they just nailed it. So I was a goofy kid growing up, didn't do a lot of homework, but got the grades to pass everything, and
Yeah.
so
Right.
probably a smart kid, but lazy, for lack of a
Hmm.
better word.
Yeah.
So college wasn't in the game, but when we all go, well, if you can't go to college, go in the military. And what do they do with us? They put us right in school. You never get out.
Mm.
You never get out.
Mm.
So, so being a medic and excelling at that led to getting picked to be an independent duty medic, or in your world, independent duty corpsman. And that, that opens up your world, because when you're working independent, you're the doc and you do everything and anything. And that started me moving around the world, doing a lot of joint work with a lot of services. Put myself through nursing school, did shock trauma, um, had a marriage for 5 years, a practice marriage for 5 years. It was absolute disaster.
Mm.
Today it's shaped me. Been married to my second wife now for 33 years. Raised two boys in the middle of all that, and that took me down some pretty odd roads, brother. With When you're in medicine and you're taking care of people on a day-to-day basis and their families, um, it's pretty grounding. When you're in medicine and you go to the field with people and you're taking care of them in that role, as you know, it's pretty humbling and it's a high level of responsibility. When you're in medicine and you're an independent duty corpsman and you go to places like Mogadishu, Somalia, where you're in the jungles of South America chasing drug runners and doing those kind of things, and you're the doc, that's really humbling. And then when you get to the highest enlisted rank and you're leading people in combat, like in Iraq in '08 at the trauma centers there, and taking care of all of our folks coming off the helicopters, probably in some of their worst moments in their life. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Mm. Mm.
And so that's kind of who I am. 30 years, 6 months, and 24 days later, after doing all that, and 10 months removed from, or 10 years removed from that now. There's a lot to unpack there, man. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'll tell you that the 10 plus years out might have been harder than the 30 in.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And see, and that's where I was going with it because, uh, well, because for me, the transition from being a E4 corporal to a civilian again, it was it was really difficult. And I say that nicely. It was very difficult because I had to readapt myself to this environment that I once was used to, but then I wasn't. I became so acclimated to structure, discipline, uh, eating 3 square meals a day,
mhm,
uh, working out 4 or 5 days a week,
right.
mentally preparing myself for any given situation. I come back here to Milwaukee and my life is like turned upside down because there are so many uncertainties. And I had the love and support from my family and all that, but mentally I was struggling.
Sure.
I was struggling, and there were days, David, that I said to myself, I'd rather go back.
You
I'd rather go
know,
back and risk going to Desert Storm than staying out here in these streets, man. It was no.
so it's the most comparable thing that you can align that with is being incarcerated.
Mm,
The difference between
yeah.
people that are released from prison and people that are released from the Department of Defense, the difference is prisoners can actually go back. Shawshank Redemption is a great movie if you want to see that phenomenon.
I saw that. I saw it all yeah,
So
many times.
And so if you look at that, you know and people that understand what you're talking about, that phenomenon's there. Right up to the point in time of suicide, right? And we'll probably
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that.
yeah.
Um, and so and so we can't go back. The other thing is you got to Milwaukee, you didn't have any battle buddies anymore, did you? You don't
No,
have no fellow Marines, right?
no.
And that's not good. That's not good. And civilians, for all the civilians out there, this is not meant derogatory. It's just a thing.
Hmm.
Civilians in our mind are savages. It's okay to be 10 minutes late. It's okay to park someplace where you're not supposed to park. It's okay to break the little rules, but not the big one. All that type of stuff that skirts on our values alignment and the thing. Because our values, when you say values like integrity and honesty and service, you say those things, that's tied to the foxhole, man.
Yeah.
That's tied. That's that when you say I cleaned my weapon, right? Or I cleaned the 60. When you
Hmm.
say that, your whole team's relying on that.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't take you can't take a jacked up weapon out in the field because you were lazy. And if you say it's ready to go, nobody double checks you.
Nobody, because we believe you.
So we're like hot dogs, man. If you put a hot dog in a microwave and you do it for a minute, you open the door, it looks just like a hot dog, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Except the DNA's changed forever.
yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it. And I'm telling you that I struggled. Then my PTSD kicked in,
Mm-hmm.
and it was low key. It was downhill from there. When I started having the nightmares,
Yeah,
it was downhill, man. I really didn't understand what I was going through during that time period, especially in my 20s and my 30s. I
that's rough.
really I really didn't know. You know, they didn't. I don't even think they had a word for it back then. I think it was shell shock, but
Shell shock. Let me
but
let me ask you this: what was your number one emotion when you're in this cloud of I don't know what's wrong with me? But what was your number one emotion?
I was paranoid,
Really
paranoid and angry.
angry. See, that is the one thing we all have in common. No matter what our PTS is derived from, to include moral injury, we should talk about that. But no matter
Yeah.
what our PTS is derived from,
Uh-huh.
it's that anger.
Yeah.
It's
Always,
that anger
always. I was ready to snap on any given moment, man.
for the smallest things,
Yeah.
things are that are not even comprehensible to people that don't understand it.
Yeah.
They're like, what's wrong with Mark? That was such a little thing. It didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, a bomb could go off and you would react appropriate. I mean, you'd run towards it, you'd react, you'd
Yeah.
save lives, you'd
Yeah.
neutralize threats. You would do all of those things,
Because
but
I'm
have
trained
somebody,
for it.
but have somebody show up 10 minutes late for an important meeting and you lose it.
Yeah. Yeah. I prided myself for not being late for work. I was angry at myself for being late, because it was instilled in me to be on time.
And you got your shirt on right there. That is a team. That's your team forever. That's your life. That's your team forever, right?
Yeah.
We veterans, we want to ride for a brand. You work for a company, just if a vet walks into this gets into some of the work that I do, that I'm trying to do. We can talk about some of the challenges of that. Um, you work for a company and you're a veteran and you come in, you know what veterans want? They want the hat and the shirt. You want to get up in the morning, you want to put the shirt on.
Mm.
Whatever it says, Ford, Delco, it doesn't matter. They want the shirt.
Yeah.
Because for years, however long we served, we got up and we put on the uniform and had your name on one side and your service on the other side and a flag on the shoulder, right?
Indeed.
So so that's heavy. And it doesn't matter if it's 4 years or 40. That is heavy stuff.
It is.
So let me throw this one out here and because you and I haven't, we didn't have a big long pre-conversation about this, but let me throw this out here.
Right.
This is for your audience. If I showed up for a job interview and I was in a wheelchair and I was deaf in my right ear, and you really wanted to hire me, do you know what the office needs to look like, what the elevator needs to look like, what the bathroom needs to look like, where you might sit in the office, what you'd tell the rest of the staff, what your fire evacuation plan would look like? Do you know that as a boss? Of course,
Mm.
of course you do, because the American Disabilities Act tells you exactly what you have to do.
Make everything left
Lift
side
and yeah, well, and all
appropriate.
of that. And it tells you have to have a ramp, and it tells you have to do, the
Yeah.
elevators have to be so wide, and you've got to have a disabled toilet, and you have to, all that stuff, right?
Correct. Correct.
When a veteran walks in with all of these challenges that we have into an environment, you and I talked about environment, into an environment, how many employers know what to do with a veteran to get them off on the right foot?
None.
50% of veterans leave their first job in their first year because of this, and 65, and in bad cases, up to 85% are gone in 2 years because of everything we just talked about.
And people wonder why the homeless scenario and the suicide rate for veterans is so high.
Because the purpose, right? We need purpose. This is why you have to have the Lord in your life. We talked about this. This purpose thing is a big struggle. And if you try to solve what your purpose is inside of your own head and you don't get some help to navigate it, it will drive you into bad, dark places. because you start telling
Yeah.
yourself stuff that's not true, but it's evil. It's being
Yeah.
mean to yourself.
It's damn near demonic, but it comes to a point where you might start entertaining it.
Well, some say 22 a day. The VA says it's down to 17 a day. I always double everything the VA says. So 34 a day, whatever you
Yeah.
want to come up with, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's too many.
It's too many.
And you know,
A
8 out of
day?
10,
This is a day.
yeah.
Not
You
a
know,
month, a year, a day.
yeah,
Every day.
every single day.
Yes. Go
And
ahead.
and America creates about 500 veterans a day, between all the services and the discharges. So if you think about that, now here's another stat for you. 8 out of 10 of those veterans that commit suicide
Mm,
have no combat time. This is
mm.
not a combat thing. You throw combat on top of that. You take trauma medicine from it, for example. That's my PTSD is derived from you know what, Mark? I had to put a lot of guys in body bags, our guys. That's bad enough, but the kids just got me.
Yeah.
Though all that collateral stuff in war, it just
Yeah.
got me, right? So that's
Oh,
my thing. Was I ever in a foxhole swinging a trenching tool in hand-to-hand combat fighting for my life? No, no. But whatever mess was left afterwards was mine to clean up.
hmm. So,
So, but you think about that and everybody goes, well, okay, well, that's a predisposition for you to be set up for these type of things. What about the 8 people that just because of the phenomenon that we talked about, just the social phenomenon, this transitional phenomenon, set themselves up?
hmm.
Big tough guys, Marines or whoever, pararescue guys, whatever. If you go to a VFW and you sit down and talk to people, everybody's a Marine sniper. So I'm convinced that the whole world's full of Marine snipers. I'm just joking, but
Not everybody.
no, no, you're right. But the three counselors most military people choose when they get out of the service. The first 3 counselors that they choose are Jim, Johnny, and Jack. That's a no-go, man.
Hmm.
Drinking shots of whiskey didn't cure anything,
No, no,
but
no.
we do it. I'll be, what is today? In about 13 days, I'll be dry 7 years.
Congratulations on that, brother.
Yeah, game changer,
Yeah,
absolute game changer.
yeah.
It set me up to have enough clarity that I could start owning my conditions, owning my stance in the world, owning my challenges, and stop being a victim.
Mm, mm.
When you
That part.
transition from victim to owner, you start to get better.
Yeah. So how was transitioning to civilian life for you
Oh, it's terrible,
after 32 years?
terrible. Angry all the time.
Man.
Uh, Angry all the time. And some of this is me, but some of it's what I described. If you're a corporal in the Marine Corps, you're handling Marines, you're handling soldiers, you're handling Marines, and you're directing them. And you've got a staff NCO somewhere in there that's mentoring you or giving you guidance. But they don't show up every 5 minutes and make sure that the last 2 things you did with your Marines is exactly right. Because they trust you, because you're trained. We
Right.
go into the civilian world, dude. I took hundreds of people to combat. Somehow got them out of there with their mental faculties after doing all that work I just described. This is my last tour. Some of the others were less, but similar. Um, I'm a pretty capable guy. I had 3 command positions. So in your world, I was a sergeant major at 3 different levels of command. And I get
Mm,
into an institution. I have a graduate degree in disaster management. I get into an institution and things start happening that my whole experience in my life, like COVID, my whole experience in my life line up and people discredit you or they say stuff like, that's just a military thing, Dave. Like it's a negative that we served. I'm out.
mm,
I'm out. And I once I turned all this over to the Lord Jesus Christ, he's given me permission
mm,
to be out. He's told me,
mm.
he said, you've done enough. You've done enough. And so I'm
Indeed.
walking the path he's put me on.
And stand on that path every day, brother.
It's
Don't
the
go
only
to the
way.
left, don't go to the right. Just stay, keep your eyes
It's
on the straight and narrow.
brother, especially, I've written a couple of books. I wrote them because I wanted to give back. I just wanted to put my stuff in a book. They're little, most of it's just one-liners for people to think about because nothing's novel. So if you read the book, you might get a little bit ahead on a difficult issue. That's it. Nothing, there's war stories in there, but I do that to make a point because it's about attitude and how you handle certain things. And I'm not perfect at it, made a lot of mistakes. And so
Yeah.
if you put mistakes in a book, people like that.
Okay.
But there's one book that's been a bestseller for thousands of years that has the answer to everything.
The Bible, brother.
You know what? For people out there that say, well, I don't read the Bible, I don't study the Bible, I don't know the Bible, open up your browser and type in there your problem and ask for a biblical reference. You're going to get five. You're going to get the cross references.
Mm,
You're going to get Mark and John and Paul and Matthew. You're going to get all that because that's what those guys were kind of charged to do.
mm,
It's
mm-hmm.
all there, man.
It's
Stop
all
reading the five whys and the 12 hours and the seven habits. Stop reading all that stuff
mm,
and just read the Bible. So,
indeed, indeed. Now I know you touched on dealing with the PTSD
yeah,
afterwards and struggling after you retired.
yeah,
But I do remember you mentioning in our brief uh,
yeah,
pre-interview
yeah.
that you dealt with AODA issues growing up before you went to the military, right?
In what context?
I think it was before you said that you started drinking.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, the first time that I was hammered drunk socially, like getting drunk with somebody socially, I was four
Mm.
years old. My grandfather got me hammered drunk.
Oh,
He fed me wine all the way home from town. By the time I got home, I was his new drinking buddy.
oh,
That was a cultural thing. I would say my family's predisposed to alcohol abuse. Alcoholics withdrawal. Even when I was drinking, probably at my heaviest, if I would have went on deployment for a year, and you got, journal order number one, I'm good. I'm good. But the day I'm out from underneath journal order number one and somebody
mm,
hands me a beer, I'm going to drink
mm,
17 of them.
indeed, indeed,
And so that's abusive
yeah.
use of alcohol, and it's not so and it's not addictive use. So people say, well, I didn't need it, but if I had it, I can't moderate, and that's a whole other thing. The bigger thing, Mark, that I think that a lot of us deal with, and actually 4 out of every 10 veterans deal with, is moral injury.
Talk about
And
that.
yeah, because I appreciate that because it's lesser known, and I think sometimes PTS and moral injury are congruent. And sometimes I think moral injury is more dominant than PTS, but it gets called PTS because people haven't really got their head around moral injury. So, so here's my story that is probably the most morally injurious, and I wrote about this. It took me a while to do it, but so in '08 during the surge, the bad guys in Sadr City were hammering the green zone pretty bad in Baghdad. And that area of Sadr City was not any indifferent than Fallujah or Ramadi as far as how to clean it up, right? House to house, door to door, street fighting. And so all the plans got laid in to go do that. Well, on the medical side of the house, what you do is you clear the beds. You clear out every single bed. So that guys like you, when you show up and you need something, we got all the blood, all the beds, all the operating rooms, everything's ready for you guys.
Mm.
But in the midst of our time there, that trauma center that I was at was the only one that could do advanced intensive care, long-term intensive care. So we had about 12 civilians in our ICU, 16 to 70, somewhere in there, all collateral damage from combat. And we knew their families. I mean, they would come and visit. They'd get them onto the installation. It was a big, State Department had to be involved. It was a big deal. And so
Mm.
these people we'd taken care of for a long time. Well, to clear the beds for this combat op in Sadr City meant that we would have to fly them out of there to a hospital in Baghdad that couldn't take care of them. So basically, we were going to euthanize them. We were going to have to kill these 12 people,
You have to
euthanize them.
Oh,
We would fly them, but we knew from the minute we landed on the helicopter and let them off the helicopter, they'd be dead within now.
yeah.
So now you have military doctrine, operational orders running up against all of our morality, all of our ethics, to include medical professionals. At this point in time, I'm a nurse. First, do no harm. All these things, right?
Yeah,
These are that, and then you've got all your military responsibilities, and the two don't work together. Well, we flew them all out of there. We killed them all, and then we never did the operation. We never went into Solder City.
So, so did you
So I
have to
get to
explain? Did you have to
so,
explain
so
anything
and
to?
I was the chief at the I was the senior medical enlisted guy in the whole country of Iraq at that time. And I was on the executive team that made that decision.
Hmm.
It was rough. So I got to live with that forever. That's morally injurious, right? That's
Okay.
that. So, but
Yeah.
so let me give you another example of moral injury that's the most prevalent. I'm a young female, I'll use a Marine because you're a Marine. I'm a young female Marine. I go through basic training. I get to my first unit, and I'm in with my fellow Marines, whatever we're doing, motor pool. And one of them rapes me. That's moral injury, brother.
Indeed. And there's a lot of people dealing with that.
The VA says 1 in 4 women in the DoD are sexually assaulted.
Hmm.
I have a young lady when I'm up in Montana. I have a young lady there that's doing the work. She's a combat vet from the
Mm-hmm.
Army,
Mm-hmm.
and she's doing work with other female combat vets. And sometimes her and I speak together, and I always defer to her and I say, "Is it 1 in 4?" And her and a couple of others will always simultaneously go, "Dave, it's 9 out of 10."
Whoa.
And they all have a story.
Whoa. 9 out of 10.
And that's walking out. Now, you tell me, I'm gonna do a little reverse podcasting on you here. You
Whoa.
tell me the day that you took off the uniform, where were you stationed when you discharged?
I was in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
When you walked out the gate at Camp Lejeune, turned in your ID card, walked out the gate. You probably had your uniform on, you were gonna go change. When you walked out the gate,
Hmm.
who was there for you?
Nobody.
And was there anybody 5 more steps down the road, 5 more miles down the road, 100 miles down the road, 5 years down?
I
Now,
was
now
all
you're now
by my
you're
lonesome.
now you're a young lady that left home, joined the service, earned the right to wear the uniform, trained, integrated with the unit, same oath of office that we take.
Yeah.
And you walk out the gate, and your best memory of the United States Marine Corps is getting raped. I talked to a retired lieutenant colonel whose platoon sergeant raped her when she was a lieutenant.
It. How did that conversation go? Oh my God.
Well, her and we don't talk all the time. It was deep. I mean, we were having we did a podcast together. Her name's Olivia Nunn. You should look her up. She'd be great on your podcast.
Okay.
She's very smart. She's very smart. She does marketing and communications now and those kind of things. Um, she's got a heck of a story. She's got a heck of a story.
Mm.
Um, so with all of that, that's really what we need to elaborate on here because it leads to my work. All I want with my work is I want companies, corporations, leaders, entrepreneurs who have the financial, organizational structures, all of those kind of things to be veteran ready, which means they really need to turn this podcast on and listen to it. And then
Hmm.
ask themselves the basic question: do I provide an environment for Marines, soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardsmen, Space Force folks, all of it, coasties? Do I provide an environment for them to thrive? Which means when Mark walked off of Camp Lejeune, there was a place Mark could go that actually understood him well enough to
Mm.
help you reassimilate.
Mm.
that had an environment
Yeah.
they don't exist.
You know, before we go deeper into that, I have a question here in the chat.
Sure.
The question here is, well, I will give you this question. With everything going on in the world currently, do you recommend someone joining the military? I have a child looking to go that route.
So I'll give you a little humorous answer first. If you're a former Marine, you always put your kids in the Air Force. So there's a reason for that. I used to always say the best recruiters are parents in the other services because they'd send all their kids to the Air Force. Um, Here's what I'll tell you. I think in this day and age, with what's out there in front of, especially the Gen Zs right now, which I have a lot of hope for, with that's where this individual fits as a Gen Z. I think that there's no better place to build a foundation to realize your dreams in life, no matter what they are, than the United States military. It gives you the space to grow. Mark, I was so socially inept being a farm kid. And luckily I was mature beyond my years, maybe to keep my ears and eyes open and to learn from people that didn't look like me, didn't grow up where I grew up, didn't talk like me, didn't have the education level more or less than me. I learned how to navigate all that. And it's a crash course in the military and it's invaluable. My kids, I raised my military brat kids. I think that's the best thing that came out of all of it is they can navigate socially. I can drop them anywhere in the world and they just thrive. They don't have any biases. They don't have any, any of that stuff is no biases, no preconceived, you know, what am I looking? Prejudice. They don't have any of that.
Mm.
So I say absolutely yes. The leaders in the military, I've got a little bit of disagreement with maybe how they're being developed now, but I think some of that's swinging back. The leaders in the military still today are raised to be about soldiers first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you gotta send your kid off somewhere out in the world, they're not going to get taken any better care of.
Mm.
My buddy here in Arizona, his son joined the Marines just about a year ago. He's a what is he? He's a 13. He's a mortarman. He's a 13, and he's out. He's just starting his first West Pack. So he's
Nice.
out. Yeah, right. Yeah, they flew him to Okinawa. He came out of
Yeah.
29
Yeah.
pounds, flew him to
Okinawa. Yeah.
Okinawa,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're getting. I think they're getting on the
Yeah.
ship today, and they're out,
Yeah.
right? And
Nice.
my buddy doesn't know anything about it, and he said, man, everything that's going on in the world today, and my kid's out there. And I said, to be honest with you, if you leave him in the Lord's hands, the Lord's got him. Whatever's going to happen, happen. But nothing bad's going to happen to him because he wasn't trained, doesn't have the right battle buddies, doesn't have the right leadership. None of that. That's not going to happen.
Mm.
That's not going
Mm.
to happen because it's
Nice.
all there. So, yeah, I just think it opens so many doors. If you're going to go in, go all in. Do every push-up that you can do, volunteer for the
Yeah,
stuff
man.
that you can volunteer for, get every
Yeah.
ounce of college, every school that you can get, every opportunity, that anything that makes you uncomfortable, go do it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do it all. I
You're,
mean,
you're
just get it all over you because
you're right. You're right.
it's a lot of goodness.
Yeah, because before I went to the Marines, I had that honest conversation with my recruiter, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, what am I going to expect when my feet touch the ground in San Diego? What what am I what am I heading myself into?" And I remember this, David. He paused. He paused for about a good 10 seconds, and he looked at me with a serious face, and I never saw him be this serious before. During my time getting to know this guy, always a cool guy, always jovial, blah blah. But when I asked him this question, Master Sergeant, he flipped script on me. He became a Marine. He said, "Do you work out?" I said, "A little bit." He goes, "Do you run?" I said to him, "No." He said, "You better start, and you better start today." And that's not going to be enough. he said, I'm going to tell you the truth. And he set my behind down, Master Sergeant, and he told me the real deal. He said, they're going to call you everything but the child of God. They're going to call you names that you never heard before. You better start running a lot because they're going to run your ass to the ground. And then when they do that, they're going to keep running you. Work out every day. He said two a days if possible. He said to me, as honest as I'm telling you all this, it's not going to be enough. That was the scary part. He said that it's not going to be enough because Marines were trained to push you beyond the limit. They're not trained to push you to it. You're going past that limit. And Master Sergeant, he did not lie. He did not lie. I was pushed past. I prayed so much. I prayed so much during my time in boot camp. It wasn't even funny. And I've seen a lot of things happen in boot camp. I've seen people crack, lose all their mind in boot camp. This was boot camp. I didn't even get put to a duty station yet. This was boot camp. Ladies and gentlemen, Marine Corps boot camp is nothing to be played with. You will be pushed past your limitations, and their job is to break you. Their job is to break your ass into a million pieces and put you back together the way they want you to be put together.
The microwave. The DNA, and you know what? When they put you back together, there's no putting you back the other way that you came. It's forever.
Mm-hmm. And just so you know, the same person that asked the question, she said that her son was thinking of going to the Air Force. So,
good choice.
Yeah.
Oh, tell her. Well, she's listening.
Yeah, she is.
Whatever he's good at, make sure that he's got a guaranteed job doing it. Whatever whatever he's good at. And you know what? I'll tell you something. I'm gonna dime out the Marines here a little bit. I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for Marines.
I just dimed this out myself.
Listen,
brother.
our rapid reaction force guys in Mogadishu, our Marine rapid reaction guys, didn't have a corpsman with them. So I got to play Marine corpsman for a while. And so I get a lot of this. A Marine's best friend belongs to the United States Air Force in the form of an A-10 or close air support, whatever that is. So there's a lot of Marines alive today because of what the Air Force did. We all have a role. None of it works individually. So if you want to, listen, this man that I just told you that went in the Marine Corps, he went in the Marine Corps because he says, if I'm going to do it, I'm all in. He goes, I'm going to be a Marine. He goes, I'm going to be a Marine. I'm going to be a grunt. His ASVAB scores are so high, he should probably be doing intel back in Washington, D.C. I mean, he could have done anything he wanted. He wants to be a grunt Marine. So, if you want to get into the global application of the power of this country, it's in the United States Air Force. We can reach out and touch you 24/7, any point in time of day.
Indeed.
And make it hurt really bad.
Oh, my wife's father is he served in the Air Force too. So she said, "Go Air Force." So
that's right.
I
air power, baby.
Surrounded by Air Force people, so I fold. I don't know what to tell y'all. Yeah, I'm good.
I love we all got our role, man. We've all got our role. That's another thing.
Cool.
You get out in the civilian world, and a guy like you and I, we start going at each other, Marines, Air Force. I've had people stop me and go, "You guys need to chill out." And we're like, "What are you talking about? That's a little too aggressive." And you just kind of shake your head and you go, "You have no idea. You have no idea."
So talk about your business platform, which is to help veterans transition, because as you excellently pointed out for myself, I didn't have that, and many other veterans during my time and past, we didn't have that. So let's get into that.
Let me give you an initial concept and let me tell you where I'm at today. And let me tell you some wins and some losses.
Okay.
The initial concept was to address everything that we've talked about.
Yeah.
This environment, right?
Mm.
Veterans need a place to land. So I built some programmatics around it. Vet Ready, Ready's an acronym. Built some programmatics around it, and with a hire me to come in at whatever level, and I'll consult it for up to a year to help you build this environment in your organization. When you run a business, Mark, and it's financially driven, that's a dynamic. I'm not good at it, and I'm not good at it because one, I'm a servant. That's what the Lord put me here for, and two is I'm an activator. I can take people and I can motivate them and get them in the right direction and help them be successful, and that's what I do. And so what I found is that one of the biggest hurdles to get a company to have somebody like me or you or anybody come in and talk about how to shape an environment, how to build an environment in your organization that helps veterans transition. Not helps veterans. This is not about feeding veterans or giving them a wubby or making sure that they can see a doctor beyond the VA. It's not what this is about. This is about when a veteran gets up every morning, he's going to an environment that at least respects these things that we've talked about. There needs to be a sense of purpose. There needs to be a team. There needs to be camaraderie. But biggest number one thing is that if you have values in a company, you have to live those values.
Mm.
Because when you and I see values misalignment or people disregarding the values set forth in the
Mm.
company, we got to
Mm-hmm.
go because that's a life and death situation for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's to get to that point. Well, what I've found out is that this is kind of where the Lord's got me on this journey is it needs to be free. People just need to pick up the phone and call me and say, Dave, I at least have enough in my heart and my soul that I want my organization to be vet ready, to be you know, have a
Indeed.
good veteran culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll give you the playbook. And then it's yours to execute. And if you've got any questions, give me a call.
What's the name of
Uh,
your company again?
Well, Vet Ready is the program. The
Okay.
company is Max Fab Consulting,
Okay.
which Max Fab is a whole keynote speech about a flag off the top of a trauma center in a combat zone that was given to me at the end of my tour based on my insistence that Maximum Fabulous is the only organizational attitude that you can have in a combat zone or anyplace else in the military.
Okay.
So you probably never had a sergeant major in your life say that he was Maximum Fabulous.
No, no, I have not. And most sergeant majors that I've encountered were uh somewhat assholes.
Yeah, we get a bad rap, don't we?
Mm.
You're gonna tell me just
Mm.
because you're gonna tell me there's bad E9s out there?
Mm. I'm talking
There's
about the
plenty.
Marines. I don't know about the Air Force, but I'm talking about the Marines.
No, it's
I'm
here's the
talking about
thing
the
is
Marines.
it is a hell of a journey to get to
They're
E9.
hard nosed.
It's a hell of a journey to get to E9, and I remember when the colonel shook my hand, the wing commander shook my hand and said, "Congratulations, you made chief."
Mm.
And that's it. I mean, that's the pinnacle, right? You can't go any farther, and it's 1%. It's the 1%. And I thought, oh, thank goodness, I'm out of the rat race. I'm out of the politics. I'm out of the competition. I'm out of
Mm.
because I didn't like it. I just wanted to be me, right? I
Yeah.
wanted I wanted
Yeah.
to be me and make it on my merits,
Yeah.
which I think I did a pretty good job of.
Yeah.
It got worse, Mark.
Mm.
Once I got into the E9 community, it was worse.
How so?
Well, because you can be a certain kind of E9. In the Marine Corps, you can be a master guns or you can be a sergeant major. So if you're a master guns, it means you want to run the motor pool and be in charge of a lot of stuff and a lot of Marines. And if you're a sergeant major, it means that you want to go be the right hand man to some general officer. Two different lines of
Sure.
battle.
Sure.
In the Air Force, when they make you command chief, you're the senior advisor to the commander, be it an O6 colonel or a 1-star, 2-star, 4-star, whatever it is. That's where you fit,
Hmm.
and so you have to assume that role, and it's lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
lonely,
mean,
and sometimes those sergeant majors, when they were assholes, it's because they they became something that they aren't.
Ooh,
It's a facade.
ooh.
And I will tell you,
Mm,
we all call ourselves brothers, oh, my fellow chiefs, my brothers.
yeah.
How many of those people you think are still hanging out around in my life 10 years later?
I would venture to say very, very few. One. Mm, 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 mm. Wow. Uh, you made me think about something, Master Sergeant, when you talked about just wanting to be yourself,
Mhm.
and that's so true. That's so true, sir. That we just want to be us. We just want to be Mark. You just want to be David. You know, I want to be able to kick my feet up and just breathe. But there's this image that our supervisors and society puts on you, that you have to hold this image up, right? In order for you to be accepted and appreciated, you have to embrace the suck, as David Goggins say. You have to embrace that suck. You have to embrace uh, tucking in your feelings when you want
Mhm.
to express it. You have to tuck in those emotions when you want to say, I need some help. You have to suck that stuff in. And it creates a different version of yourself. You become something that you don't want to become. And that's probably why top sergeants and master sergeants, they behave so aggressively and negatively, because they've become something that wasn't in them to become in the first place.
But yet the system kind of dictates that. There's a chapter in my book that says people cry on the farm. I write a lot of corollaries between my farm upbringing and my leadership in the military. And the reason that it's titled "People Cry on the Farm" is because you think of farmers as big, tough people that can handle stuff and they work hard and they do those kind of things. Well, you think of soldiers, sailors, Marines, as big, tough people. I went through my whole time in Iraq and I never cried, man.
Mm,
When everybody else was falling apart crying because we had a trauma bay full of 6, 7 dead soldiers. And we're putting everybody in body bags and we're draping them in flags and we're doing ceremonies to get them to the morgue and send them home. And we're washing their bodies because we're already thinking about their parents that don't even know they're dead.
mm,
And people are crying.
yeah.
And we have a chaplain and the chaplain is praying.
Mm, even
And
the
Chief
chaplain.
and Chief Dave Nortel said to himself, "You can't afford to cry." Damaged me for the rest of my life. It damaged me.
You said that to the chaplain.
No, I'd said that in my book.
You said that in your book. Okay.
Yeah, after I got out of the bottle and had enough clarity and said, "Gosh, where did I make mistakes?" Well, number one was God gave us emotions for a reason. And when
Mm-hmm.
you emote, right, you start
Mm-hmm.
to heal in whatever way that is. When you laugh, you're healing. When you cry, you're healing.
Mm.
When you're angry, you're damaging yourself. You got to understand these things, and they're all there for a reason. Some we have to control better or understand them.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing about tears coming out of your eye, most E9s, Marines and Sergeant Major will say Sergeant Majors don't cry, but their eyes sweat every once in a while.
Yeah.
The most effective combat leaders that I ever met that were fellow sergeant majors, chiefs, command sergeant major, army guys, the yeah, master chiefs in the Navy. The most effective leaders that I ever met would weep over their soldiers.
Mm.
I never lost respect for them.
Indeed. Indeed.
But but that's not the natural default, man. The
mm,
natural default for us as men in our earthly minds and the way we evaluate ourselves is to be tough, handle it ourselves. I've got it. You hold up your hand. I got it. Don't worry about it. This one's mine. Blah. You got all the things you say, right?
right.
And we don't ask for help till a body part's missing.
Mm.
Way too late, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way, it's way too late.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to we have to stop playing with our own emotions, Sergeant Major. And we can't hold on to something that's not healthy.
If you're in an environment that scolds you or gives you a demerit or holds you in less higher of esteem because you emote properly, and I'm not talking about getting mad and punching a hole in the wall. I'm talking about having some tears in your eyes, or I'm talking about having a sense of humor. I'm talking about using your emotions in a productive way. If that is a negative, then you need to leave the environment. You don't need to change your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we don't.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. We
We embrace
persist.
this up. We embrace this up.
That's exactly right. When you say, Gunny Sergeant, I'm cold. He said, I'm going to make you colder. You better get used to it. Right?
Stop
What?
stop freaking whining.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Stay on mission. Stay on
right,
mission, Ross.
right.
The rest of the unit doesn't care how cold you are, Ross. Stay on
They don't
mission.
care. They don't give a shit. You got a mission to do.
That's right. And
Stop
move
whining.
out. And because I had to stand here and talk to you, we're 5 minutes off a mission. So now you're holding up everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Got my
So now
face.
it's your fault. Now it's your fault. So, and you've seen it 1,000 times. Yeah, I mean, we're trained to accomplish stuff. We're trained to work through it. We're trained to, the higher physical services, the Army and the Marine Corps, and then factions of the others. Those higher physical services, you guys play hurt every week. Every week.
Hmm.
You get up on a Monday morning and it's time to go to the field.
Hmm.
Your ankle hurts from the week before.
Yeah.
Your shoulder hurts from the week before.
Yeah.
Or you
Feet,
were at the
feet
you
hurt
were at the
from all the humps that we did. Yeah.
you were at the range for 3 straight days, and so you got little tiny burns all over your back because you didn't secure your shirt the right way.
Mm.
And that's your fault because you were
Hmm.
taught how not to have that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. How long
So,
has How long has your company been in existence?
when did we 2018, I guess we started. So six
Okay.
years. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean that was concept wise. I'll tell you, I've had some people embrace it and not be able to execute it. I've had some people embrace it and knock it out of the park, and I've seen some veterans really thrive from it.
Hmm.
And then I've had a lot of people, Mark, that just look at it and it's a bridge too far for them. A lot for quite some time. I've kind of blamed it on me. I said, well, maybe I'm not a good enough salesman. Maybe it's Dave. Maybe if somebody else was doing it, it would work better. But I don't think that's the case. I just don't think. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service as a platitude, and it's done with a stiff arm. Because if people would actually say, Mark, tell me your story, just like we started this, it would sound just like I said it. I grew up on a dairy farm in Northern California. I went in the Air Force. I wanted to go in the Navy. I went in the Air Force, became
Hmm.
a medic, blah, 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 blah. Right? We love telling that story.
Hmm.
And if people would ask veterans what their story is, that's a quantum leap to actually putting together the right environment for what and who they are. We
Hmm.
don't do that because it's ugly. I've said some things on this podcast right now that some of your listeners have stepped back and went, wow, wow.
Hmm.
Because I've probably shared more than the average veteran will share.
Hmm.
It's all about owning it, man. I own it. I say it out loud. It's part of my healing, and I don't let it keep me up at night. Do I
Hmm.
still have bad dreams? Yeah. Do I have some dreams sometimes I don't even understand that I know where they came from? Yeah. But they
Yeah.
get fewer and fewer and fewer, or farther and farther and farther away.
That part.
Will they go away forever? No. Is there
Part.
certain is there certain smells or things that I see or hear that bring back PTS, make my heart rate go up? I
Hmm.
mean, helicopters changed my life forever. The sound of a helicopter, especially a heavy helicopter like a 47 or a 60, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those things, I mean, that's just a thing. It just makes me reflect.
I'm gonna tell you something. Me and my wife went to San Diego for our honeymoon. And mind you, I've been out in the Marines for years, right? And we went to San Diego, beautiful place. We loved it. I found where MCRD was. Let me bring that thing closer. We got to the base. Master Sergeant, I could not walk past the gate. When we approached the gate to go in, I stopped. I took a picture of the gate. I took a picture of the sign that says MCRD, Marine Corps Recruiting Depot, yada, yada, yada. My wife said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm having flashbacks. I'm remembering all the hell that I went through in boot camp. And I'm looking at the puke colored buildings and the terracotta tiles and all that mess. And it's just bringing back bad memories, Master Sergeant. And I could not walk past the gate. I think that was the first time I think my wife actually saw me being in my authentic broken self. I think that was the first time that my wife saw me as a broken individual because I could not walk past that gate.
I'm so totally with you, man. I'm so totally with you.
Yeah.
I think I'm
So
gonna get a visit from a German Shepherd here in a minute. She's been good though. She's been good.
she had,
She's been
yeah.
hanging. Um, well, let me give you this. Based on based on the story you just told, let me give you this. We need help walking past the gate.
We do. We
The
do.
figurative and literal gate. We need help. And I'm
Yes.
not talking, I am talking to my fellow veterans. I'm talking to the people out there that are in this circle of our new lives that can actually do little things to help us walk past that gate, to own it, for it to be okay. And quite frankly, to feel respected for our service and
Mm.
not have it be a negative.
Mm-hmm.
It is so damaging to get into an organization and have somebody, you come up with an idea, and that's an idea that you used in some environment that solved a problem that's so elementary to us. We look at it and go, I got the answer to that, did it 1,000 times. And to have somebody look at you and say, that's just a military thing.
Mm.
What does that mean? That's so hurtful. It happens every day. It's happened 100,000 times today across our nation. That one interaction,
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
and people try so hard. I had a guy, I was trying to coach a guy through this. He's a business owner. And he said to me, he goes, I can't, he's working metal fabrication. So I can't hire Marines. I said, why? He goes, they're lazy. And I laughed and I said, you got to tell me what lazy means. And he goes, well, they get a job, they finish the job. And he goes, then I'll see them sitting down. And I said, well, what's the next job? He goes, well, I haven't given it to him. I said, that's because you haven't learned about Marines. I
Right.
said, Marines become highly, you give them a job that should take 4 hours, they're going to get it done in an hour and a half because it means that they can actually get off of their feet, clean up their ruck, whatever they need to do,
Yes.
right? They're looking to buy time. And the only way to buy time is to get the mission accomplished and then freaking sit down. I said, so you better get used to giving them 3 days of work for the normal person.
Yeah.
So
Right. Uh-oh. You went on
my
a
my
there you
whole world, the doorbell rang, and so now it's on.
go. Okay. But you're right though, Master Sergeant. You're right in the fact that we do take our work serious and we work to get it done. And if there's nothing else to do, then we sit the hell down until there is something to do. So if you want us busy, then you keep us busy. Don't tell us to just do a thing and then expect to do something else. No,
Right.
you need to keep us busy.
And if we do finish and you don't have something else for us to do, then you're working for a lame-o place. I don't want to work here. There's nothing for me to do.
Ain't nothing, right? It's nothing to do. I
That's
just
right.
sit down most of the time, you know?
That's right.
So
That's
yeah,
right. Two
it's all about
two
perspective.
completely different perceptions.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
I see your dog is getting on your nerves, so I'm gonna ask you a question right quick. How can people contact you?
Hey, listen, it's really easy. Just go to MaxFab, MAXFAB consulting.com. Everything's there. The book's there, the blogs are there, my own podcast is there. This will be there. Click on the link, schedule some time to chit chat. Like I said, we've gone from worrying about trying to drive some sort of financial thing to pay for certain things to I've kind of figured out a way to make this all free, because really what I want veterans to have an environment to move on to,
Mm.
and if that just requires my time, then people can have it.
Awesome, awesome. Master Sergeant, it has been a great privilege to take this time to speak with you and really get to know you and your work. And I really hope that your work does blow up. And if there's anything that I could do to help, I mean, I'm here. From one soldier to another,
Yeah,
you
you bet.
know, we got to support our own.
Amen. Amen. Well, hey,
So,
that's kind of where it starts. So, no, I don't disagree. No, I
yeah.
think you're great, Mark. I appreciate you actually building this platform, and I know you have a lot of people from a lot of different walks in this journey.
Mm.
And I will tell people out there that haven't taken this journey that there's more similarities than there is differences when it comes to this veteran transition thing. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Indeed. We need more people out there like you, sir.
God bless you, brother.
But thank you so much, Master Sergeant. And
Yeah.
as always, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Soldier Stories. My name is Mark Ross. And remember, it's okay to not be okay. Just do something about it. With that being said, Master Sergeant, you have yourself a good evening.
Hoorah.
Ooh.
That's for you.
Pretty
Pretty good, huh?
All right. Bye bye.
All right, out here.